Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are working with some Vanda orchids. I didn't do a Vanda video in a while. It's gonna be one of those let's repot and not, put on makeup and stuff type of a video today. And today I want to repot this wonderful orchid. I found out what it is. I'm gonna tell you in a second. But I want to repot it in a pot like this, and I'll tell you why. This is my Bangkok Sunset, my oldest Vanda orchid, 13 or 14, no, 11 years now. I have it 11 years. It has a beautiful flower spike, and it's one of the few Vandas that I still have. So I'm going to tell you what happened to my Vanda collection and talk about this one, and just have a Vanda video today and give you a little update while I repot. Right, so with that said, don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it, and why not subscribe? I post multiple times a week and it's completely free, but if you're feeling a little extra and you can, to consider further supporting the channel by becoming a member and getting access to some behind the scenes videos and exclusive videos. You can also use the affiliate links that I always have in the description below. You can also check out the merch. Currently we have a beautiful orchid puzzle which does feature this Vanda orchid. It didn't make it onto a mug, but I put it on the puzzle because she's beautiful. And if all else fails, you can also use the super thanks option below my videos. Right, so that said, let me arrange a little bit the situation here, and we're gonna get to repotting. Alrighty, so as I was saying, this wonderful orchid is finally identified. It's a Tony Keng something. You're gonna have the name on the screen. So if by any chance you remember, a while back I did not know what this one was. I thought it was the Bangkok Sunset, but the variety pink, and I think I used to call it like that. What happened with this one was I purchased it many years ago, 5-6 years ago maybe at this point, from eBay, I do believe. There's this seller from Germany on eBay, at least there was, and he was selling all sorts of beautiful Vandas, but tiny, young Vandas. And I had to wait a lot of years for this one to mature and bloom to figure out what it is, because I lost the tag. It's not that I lost it, but because of the UV from outside, there is no longer a name on the tag, and the original tag it came with one of those picture tags. That one got completely bleached by the sun. They get bleached like within 6 months here. The sun is very strong. So I had no name for this one, and honestly, judging by how it looks like, I did not recognize this one. I remember the name once I started to Google Bangkok Sunset hybrids, because I do remember that's what I purchased a lot. And I found one with a name that sounded very familiar to me, and I remember I did purchase it. But here's the thing, the display picture looked a lot redder than this. And if you Google the name, you will see there are some versions or individuals of this one, or varieties, that are redder or much more orange, which is more to my liking. That one was what I purchased, and it turned out to be this variety. So that's why I didn't recognize it. That's why I could not remember a single thing about this particular one. But I do remember the name, and this is what it should be. It's just that it's the pink variety, which, you know what, I've learned to love. It's a very nice pink coral, actually. And you can see this more on these flowers. It's not really pink, it's a coral color, which I personally love. I've learned to love, or it grew on me, better said. So finally we have an ID for it. I purchased it, as I was saying, while it was very young. It bloomed, I think, twice, and I was like, what the heck is this orchid? I called it Bangkok Sunset. It is a Bangkok Sunset hybrid, but yeah, now we know who she is. And as you can see, I did keep her potted, and she did fairly well. The thing with the Vandas, and let's just get to repotting. I actually watered her yesterday, and she's already almost dry because I keep her outside. So the thing with the Vandas, what's happening? In this room, I seem to not have enough light for them to bloom well. And I did discover that some Vandas are harder to bloom in lower light conditions. My Barinas are not enough for Vandas, I discovered. They're perfectly fine for Cattleyas and stuff, but I find that certain Vandas, particularly the ones with big flowers, they require the most light of all of my orchids, and Barinas are not enough to properly bloom them well. And my southern exposure, again, is not enough. it's just not enough. The sun gets way too high in the summertime. It's not constant. So I have struggled with my Vandas to rebloom them, really honestly. So I moved them outside actually and see who wants to bloom, who can live in the winter, because they're also very big orchids and they take up so much space. I didn't want to hang them on my curtain rods anymore because they're installed in a very precarious way. I'm not gonna go into the details. I didn't feel comfortable still hanging them up there. So what I did was I just put them outside and they spent the winter there as well. Now some Vandas are still there. They're doing actually well. There's a lot of the Repot stylus. Those ones seem to do the best, seem to do the greatest. I still have Vandas that did not bloom. For example, the most black one, the Col Marie, I still have it. She grew a lot, didn't bloom yet. But they receive enough light there at least. And I just kept them out in the winter to see who survives the winter. And they did. And they look pretty okay. But there were others who did not enjoy the outdoor conditions quite at all, who didn't bloom, who started to have stem rot. Remember the big Vanda that I tried in the bag thing? Yeah, the bag worked and it didn't. It created a lot of cyanobacteria at some point and it didn't work out. So I resorted to actually dunk it in a bucket to water it because it had a very big root system and no pot could contain it. That didn't end well. In a very cold day, I think I managed to stem rot it. And you'd think it has a big stem, you know, and I could salvage something from it, but I couldn't. So that one was lost to stem rot. The other ones, you know, they just didn't do so well, and I couldn't adapt myself to what they needed. I couldn't keep them somewhere where I have enough light and enough space for them. Some were given away, some just didn't make it. Some I do still have, but not the big ones, just the tinier Vandas, and they're doing okay, let's say, outside. Now, the plan is to actually continue to keep them outside, and the new garden that I will finally have a garden. Tiniest garden you've ever seen, but it's a garden nonetheless, and I shall not complain. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a garden, and I'm gonna try to keep them outside in the garden, even in the winter, sheltered a little bit in the winter. The wind is the worst, you know. Temperatures are okay, but when it's windy, it affects the leaves more. But if I keep them sheltered, everything is okay in winter with them as well, which is great. So I'm gonna keep them outside because it's the only area in which I can give them enough light. However, in the summertime, we have the problem of watering. Everything dries super fast. As I was saying, this one was watered yesterday. I left water in the pot, in the decorative pot. I left water in here because I knew I kind of wanted to do this video today, and it's gone. In 24 hours, it's almost completely dry again. That's how it works here in my environment. So the plan today is to pot this orchid back, not in the same type of pot, but in something like this. Now this is a self-watering pot, and I'm gonna show you the pot that I purchased for it. It is a self-watering pot. Doesn't look like it, but it is. And I really like it. It's aesthetically pleasing, very cute, very nice. And I find it locally, so I don't have to waste money on transport to import it and stuff. So today we are going to repot this orchid in the same type of materials, a bark and moss mixture, and in that style of pot. Now this orchid has been last potted, well, this remained on the tag in April 2021, so 3 years ago, 3 years and a bit. And it's kind of time. It did fine, it did okay. The medium is not awfully broken down. It is obviously pretty broken down. I mean, this bark is like crumbles, but it doesn't smell bad, it doesn't smell mushroomy. The moss is in good condition, and the roots don't have burns or anything. They're pretty okay. So I can get away with about 3 years, and if I really push it, to even 4 years with this mixture. Given these are orchids that don't need to be soggy all the time, they'd much rather prefer to be drier and airier, but given a really good drink when I water them. So I tend to let these guys dry and stay dry for a few days before I actually water. This doesn't put pressure on me to water. It saves up on water, and also it makes sure that all of the air pockets are dried and full of air again, so that I do not rot roots. Because I will be honest, out of all of my, these are all dead, don't worry. Out of all of my orchids, Vandas are the ones that seem to appreciate dryness and airiness the most. Oh wow, that one almost hit me in the eye. Let's just cut them. Let's not try to remove them with our bare hands. Right, so with Vandas, even in this climate, I think it is still better to use a combination of bark and moss. They seem to prefer it more out of all of the orchids. I can get away with Cattleyas in full sphagnum moss, and I can also get away with the Vandas, but a lot trickier, and I do seem to notice a difference between the roots of a Vanda in a combination and the roots of a Vanda in full sphagnum moss. I think it's too much. It's just too much. And they like more air and faster drying. But they're the only orchid that I notice have visible signs of that. But other than that, they really are okay potted, as long as I maintain them hydrated. Right, so I'm not gonna struggle actually to remove every single little piece from here, because some of this bark is attached to the roots, and that is okay. I will just remove the vast majority of these dried, very old roots, and the vast majority of the sphagnum moss and of this bark, and I'll call it a day, and I'll be okay if not everything is removed. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pick at whatever bits and pieces I can still pick. I'm not gonna bore you with it, and I'll come back when I'm done. All right, so let me show you a little bit the pot before we repot. Ta-da! This is why I'm saying it is a self-watering pot. It does have a cutout. Maybe I can show you right here. You can actually install a gauge. You can buy it separately. I didn't find it for sale, but I'm guessing there is a separate gauge. If you want to have a gauge on these pots, you can insert one from here. I didn't find one for sale and I don't really need it, but you can see it's the type that has a cone. So there has to be some absorbent medium right here at the bottom that goes into the cone, and this is the reservoir. The reservoir is an open reservoir and it only extends up to here. So whatever water overflows, it overflows. So you gotta be careful with these and your furniture. I know. I kind of got the hang of things and I don't have issues. Plus, if this orchid will sit outside, who cares if it's gonna overflow? It's not like the terrace. I'm not gonna flood anybody below me. I'm gonna water the ground. The life, oh my gosh. There are these things which I in the past as well, I'm sure many of us take for granted, which I couldn't do here. That really affected me. Anyway, so this is the pot, and it's also pink because it kind of goes with the flowers of the orchid, doesn't it? Well, sorta. It kind of goes. Right. So, let's talk a little bit about why I just stopped purchasing also Vandas. Well, it became pretty obvious. They don't do as good for me right now. They might do better in the garden. If they do, I might start to purchase them again, but they're so big, they take so much space for not doing all that well. They're also more expensive because they're big plants, and to be fully honest, another thing that, because of what I do, I have to take into account, Vanda subjects do the worst on my channel. Everything else is above Vandas. Vandas are the worst viewed orchids on my channel. Doesn't mean they're not viewed and people don't watch the videos. It just means there is a stark difference between Vanda videos and almost everything else. And it makes sense. They are, since they're so big, the least friendly orchids for home growers. And my channel caters to home growers because that's kind of what I do as well. And home growers and beginners are the ones who are looking for my videos, right? So, by the way, I'm starting with sphagnum moss and I'm filling the cone with sphagnum moss because I want the sphagnum moss to have contact with water. It's what will absorb the water. If I put bark here, nothing will work. So I'm still gonna do that bark and sphagnum moss layering technique, and I'm gonna start with the moss that I'm gonna insert in the cone just to have access to water. And of course, the first layer will be sphagnum moss. Ta-da! Right. P.S. If you have a very different environment than mine, or if you don't grow your Vandas outside, depending on how your environment is, this could be disastrous, this combination that I'm doing here for you. If you have a cooler, more humid maybe environment, it's too much. It's too much. No aeration, self-watering, moss. It could be too much. Those air pockets might stay clogged forever and ever, and you're gonna kill the roots. So be mindful, take into account I'm doing things to cater to my desert type of climate that I have, and to the fact that I'm gonna keep them outside. Right. So as I was saying, yeah, Vanda content, not the best viewed content on my channel. It doesn't necessarily matter like 100%. I do have to take into account what people like to see, because yeah, this is my livelihood and this is the way that I pay for my new house for the next 30 years. But anyway, so I do have to take it into account, but it's not end all be all, right? However, together with the other reasons that, you know, they don't bloom so well because I don't have enough light for them, and also they take up a lot of space, just made them not my priority when it came to orchids. I'd rather start with, if I want to get into something else, especially with my new environment, I'd rather start to experiment with maybe some more cooler growing orchids or tinier orchids, maybe terrarium orchids, which has been a dream since forever. I tried to last year, but then I quickly realized I need to save up money and it's not the time. So that was postponed, but I would rather try out the tiny terrarium type orchids than going into the Vanda field again. I will still purchase Vandas and grow Vandas and stuff because I do really enjoy them, and particularly if they do seem to take off and find a stable and good home outside in the garden all year round, and it's easy for me to care for them like that, you know, obviously I will probably get more Vandas, and my content will try to aim for people who grow Vandas outside, people who live in tropical climates or at least subtropical climates. So yeah, that might happen depending. But for now, I took a break from purchasing Vandas for quite a while. When was the last time you see me purchase Vanda? I don't think it was last year. I think it was 2 years ago. I just stopped. Because it's just, you know, not what I needed. Let me try to center this. There we go. I didn't center the Bangkok sunset, and she's a little crooked, and it kind of bothers me, but I'm gonna try to get over it. Right. So after that sphagnum moss layer, I'm going with a bark layer. And to make sure that everything falls into place, I'm going to use my trusty bamboo skewers and insert it on the side and wiggle. This will make the bark fall into the very, very big air pockets. We love air pockets, but if they're ginormous, we don't love them that much, you know? And because we're working with moss and bark, you know, they're two very different materials. Moss doesn't want to fall down. We kind of need to make it go into the places we want it to make. Now, if I do have bigger, let's say, air pockets in this pot as well, I will not mind all that much. We're dealing with a Vanda, and Vandas love air, but I want to have as little of them as possible to make sure that the self-watering mechanism works. Because if the layers are not connected, then nothing works. And that's why I'm layering the sphagnum moss. It's like sphagnum moss, bark, sphagnum moss, bark. They are connected. There are strands that connect them, and there's also the roots, which act like wicks. But what I'm not trying to do is leave it all to the roots, because the roots at some point, they wick, but they don't wick enough. So what are your thoughts on Vanda orchids? How do you grow your orchids? Outside, inside? Let's talk a little bit. Are you growing them like in your house or on the balcony, or you do have a garden, you put them out in the summer maybe, or you live in a tropical region? And how do they do best for you? I'm also going to use slow release fertilizer. Vandas are heavy feeders, just like Phalaenopsis, and they're big plants. So I'm gonna use a little bit, and especially in the garden. Do you think, did I lose one? No. Do you think I'm gonna come with the watering can and water them? No. I'm gonna have a hose outside. And do you think I'm gonna prepare fertilizer all the time for them? Most likely not. I wish I would, but I know myself. So I'm just gonna use slow release fertilizer, and a lot of it, just to make sure they get some nutrients. Right, so how did you guys find success best with the Vandas? There's also another thing. Let's say you might find success with the Vandas. You know how they used to be sold, probably they still are, in those big glass vases. And at the beginning, I do believe when I first got my very first Vanda, which I'm so sorry I lost, but I did, I used to keep her in that glass vase, and I used to water, or actually soak her, like you would soak it in a bucket, soak her every few days or so. And that was fine, but that glass, that was taking up so much space, it was just not worth it. It was so heavy. It was so heavy. So that's another thing with them. I might find success with that setup, let's say, or with a particular type of setup. But it takes so much space and so much time that I'm thinking, well, I could devote this time and this space to other orchids that, you know, don't require me to struggle as much. Vandas are beautiful and I love them so much. I really do. The flowers are amazing. But that's, I think, what does it for people, and for me included. They're just a little bit more high maintenance than, let's say, your typical Phalaenopsis would be. So that's kind of what did it for me. And if you decided not to invest in Vandas, is it something you found true as well? Is this why you're not into Vandas all that much? Because I see, you cannot lie to me, guys. As a general, you, the audience, you do not watch my Vanda videos. Not as much, let's say, as other orchids. And I want to know why that is. I want to know what does it? What's the, you know, determining factor? Because maybe I can address it at some point. I don't know if I will, but I like to problem solve. I think I'm born for it, and I don't feel good if I don't solve some problems. It's a thing I do, I guess. So I kind of want to know what the problem is. I kind of suspect what it is because I'm going through it myself, but I want to know from you guys. Just tell me your experience with Vandas. Tell me whatever you want me, or you want to tell me about Vandas. Because who knows? Who knows what ideas I might get. Right, so for me, that is the plan with the Vandas. I honestly, if I will purchase Vandas again, it will probably be these tinier Vandas, although I do miss, let's just put this here because too much of a carbuncle, how you call it. Yeah, so I'll be honest, I feel like these tinier Vandas are more to my liking because they do have tinier flowers, and I personally prefer tinier flowers displayed in a cluster like this one. So probably when I'm gonna start to purchase Vandas and orchids in general again, probably I will go for the tinier ones like this because they're just a little bit easier to bloom. They don't need, I find, as much light. And yeah, there we have it. My Vanda is potted. I will run some water through the pot, and then I think I'll keep it inside because I kind of rearranged a little bit things, and I have space inside for this one, and just enjoy it in bloom, while it's in bloom at least. You guys, I came to the sink to water this orchid, and I was kind of showering it a little bit because she's a little bit dusty. And look what I found! The tiniest praying mantis you've ever seen. It's a praying mantis, baby. Oh, I love praying mantises. I have an orchid mantis. If you didn't know, I'll link it to the video down below. I have an orchid mantis, and she lives in a beautiful terrarium that I made for her. But yeah, it's a baby mantis. So what I will do, and I also saw a few ants, so maybe she is hunting the ants on this orchid. So what I will do is put her outside again. I'm not gonna keep her in the greenhouse, and just, you know, keep an eye on this little bug that I really love. If she decides to stay longer, I'm not gonna put this orchid inside. I'm gonna keep it in the garden. I'll take her with me to the new house. I want to fill my garden with praying mantises. So yeah, look. And she's so tiny. I'm sorry I cannot really focus much on it, but she's so tiny. It's the tiniest thing. Oh gosh, I love it so much. I'm so happy to see it. Right, so she's not gonna stay inside. I'm gonna put her back outside. And yeah, let's get back to the video. I don't know when I'm gonna insert this little insert, but yeah. Look, I cannot even focus. No, it's too close. Look at her. She's so pretty. The little leg. Oh gosh. And yeah, that is about it for this Vanda. I love the Bangkok Sunset hybrids. Let's just clean up the area. Not a whole lot. Right, so here we are. I really love these smaller type Vandas. I mean, this orchid, my Bangkok Sunset, she's 11 years in my collection, and she's not unmanageable. She grew taller, yes, but look. not that tall. She's very manageable. And she will continue to grow, but slow. So I do love these types of Vandas. I do really like their flowers. Probably this is what I'm gonna aim for when I start purchasing orchids again. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Which are your favorite Vandas? Or which are the ones you grow better? Yeah, let me know. I'd like to hear from you because I have to say I was a little disappointed. Ever since I moved to Cyprus, everything changed. In my balcony days, everything was great. But then again, I didn't have as many orchids, right? And also I didn't have problems with water evaporation. So everything was a lot easier to maintain watered there. But when I came to Cyprus, I thought it would do better. The Vandas would do better because it's always sunny here, but it turns out something didn't work out with my lifestyle. And I started to not do so well with Vandas, and I got a little disappointed by that, sadly. So let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. And for today, that is it. Enough blabbing. Thank you so much for watching this Repot and Chill session. I think it's a Repot and Chill, and I cannot wait to hear from you. I'll see you all next week. Hope you have a great weekend. Bye. Bye.